You know, you try to give films a chance, right? Like no matter if it's remakes, originals, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You want to give films the opportunity to be something special, to be good. You know, you want to give them a chance. But y'all, they should have left this one alone. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to In Love with Horror. My name is AJ, and thank you for joining me on the spoiler-free review of The Crow. Now, of course, The Crow is I'm going to call it a remake. I mean, I know it is based off, the comics and graphic novel, and it, to some degree, is trying to be something different. But let's just say it's a reboot of The Crow. Of course, you got the 1994 film, that starred the late great Brandon Lee as Eric Draven. We now got this reboot version that stars Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven, F.K. Twigs as Shelley Webster. Now, this film is directed by Rupert Sanders, I believe, and he's done 2 feature films, I believe, and it's Snow White and the Huntsman and Ghost in the Shell. I have not seen either one of those films, so I can't speak to those. But if I remember right, they were very mid films. Now, if you're not familiar with The Crow, if you've never seen the originals, I don't know how much the films differ from the comic book and graphic novel version, so I'm going to speak to just the OG 1994 film. But The Crow follows Eric Draven and his fiance or his girlfriend, depending on which movie you're watching. But in this one, it's his girlfriend. It follows Eric and Shelley, and they end up being murdered. And Eric ends up coming back to life to seek revenge, for him and his girl being murked. Now, what's kind of different with this one is the story. The basis is the same, right? Like just like in the 94 film, Eric and Shelley are murdered, and Eric's brought back to seek revenge. But what's slightly different with this one is he is presented with the opportunity to try to bring her back. So it's no longer just a revenge story. It is now a quest to bring her back bring her back to life, essentially. So that's kind of where the story is slightly different there. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. He's got these like crow, I don't know, is it crow powers? God powers? He's got powers, right? The dude can't die. Like he can eat bullets, stab wounds, all that good stuff. He gets take it all, and then he goes on a rampage to try to, well, not only, of course, seek revenge, but try to get his girl and bring her back to life. Now, and that is the premise for The Crow. Now, if you haven't been tracking, of course, like if you haven't been following it, there was a lot of people up in arms about this reboot coming out. And I understood where they're coming from. Like I understand when you got like, a beloved film or franchise or whatever, and it's something that is very special, like almost like you can't even recreate the magic that was there in that previous film. I get it, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, when they saw the trailer for this, they were very upset, especially because the film presented itself as a gothic John Wick type of film. And I understood where they were coming from, but I still want to give it a chance, right? I wanted to give them the chance to try something new, tell maybe a slightly different story, and invigorate it with some modern day things. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to say right off the top, right? Overall, like this film is not good. This film is rough. And I've got a couple positives. If you've seen my out of theater reaction that we got over on our Instagram, if you're not following us on Instagram, go follow us over there. Then you already know what they are. But this film is super rough, y'all. I mentioned how I was hoping they'd give it this, modern spin to the gothic emo feel, and the route that they chose to go was more like how the Joker was in the 2010 Suicide Squad, which is this kind of weird, like cringy, the more like cringy, edgy version of like going for this bad boy gothic type feel. And it there's something about it that just does not feel right. It feels cringy. It doesn't feel authentic. It feels like a wannabe, right? Like it feels like somebody trying to pretend and put on. It doesn't feel like authentic. And that's down to like the type of tattoos that they gave him that just like it literally felt like that Joker style. And I don't understand why they went with that. And in the trailer, when you're getting all these like scissor reel moments, right? Like sometimes it looks good, but when you're watching the film and you're seeing, things play out, like it doesn't look good. It doesn't really start to look kind of okay until dude gets covered in blood and all the black, and he gets covered in, the victim's blood and his own black blood. And that's when he kind of looks cool. But for the most part, it has that like cringy, edgy feel. Wasn't really feeling that. And then just in general, like just to kind of give you the quick rundown of my negatives, the performances felt they felt super odd at times. Like sometimes they were just downright bad, or sometimes they felt odd. They were just kind of all over the place. And it wasn't even just one person in particular. It was kind of just across the board, honestly. That's how I felt. And then you got the pacing, right? Like the pacing, that was also all over the place. It felt like a very disjointed film. And I'll tie that into something regarding my next negative, but it felt very disjointed. Like it just, you're jumping from sequence to sequence. It didn't flow very good. The film is way too long, and what's weird about it being long, right? So, because I checked the runtime before I started the film, because I had a late showing, so I was trying to figure out, man, how late am I gonna get home, right? And I noticed that this film was almost 2 hours, and that is way too long for this kind of film. If you're gonna have a runtime like that, you got to be having some really good, character development, character story. And that is not here in this film whatsoever. And it's paced so poorly. The intro to Eric Draven becoming the Crow is way too long. If you think back to the '94 film, that happens within like the first like 5 minutes, and then we're just going. This film, they try to make you care about Eric and Shelley like super in depth, showing the roots of their relationship, how they met and how they grew. But it really just doesn't, the way they present it, the way they visually tell that story, it doesn't feel good. It kind of like jumps in time and stuff like that. It just doesn't, you don't get that buy-in. That's not to say that FKA Twigs and Bill Skarsgård don't have some chemistry on screen. They do have some, but it's because of the poor writing and the dialogue where it just doesn't come off right. Combined with the editing, it just doesn't feel good. The pacing is just really poor, y'all. And the runtime is way too long for this type of film. Now, also, along with that, this film tries to tell a deeper story and analyze things like, dealing with grief and loss, right? So, again, I'm keeping it spoiler free, but this is the gist of the Crow, right? He comes back to life to get revenge for the unaliving of his woman. And this one, he's trying to like bring her back as well, right? And they almost try to tell this deeper story about, dealing with grief and losing yourself in the quest of vengeance. You know what I'm saying? And they don't do a good job of exploring that. They don't even give you the scenes that make you feel, Eric Draven's like descent into this blood rage madness. You don't really get that. It's more like a switch is turned and then you're running it. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because I'll give you all a line towards the end of the film. I won't tell you what's going on, but there's a line. Of course, you're gonna have that final boss encounter, right? He's gonna encounter Danny, who's playing a character called Vincent. He's going to encounter him, and in that moment, there's a moment where he is speaking with Eric Draven, Bill Skarsgård, and he says something along the lines of like, look what you've become, and it's just super ironic because it's like, man, you're saying he's become this like monster, but we didn't really like get that ride into that descent. We were just kind of there suddenly, but we didn't get the journey to it. So it doesn't feel good. It feels like a very disjointed film. And they try to be deep, but they're really not. The film just feels, I don't even know. It's weird. And I said this in my out of theater reaction. I'm like, the film is long, but it also doesn't feel long because you didn't really get to explore like the depths of the characters. It's so strange. They really wasted a lot of time. Now, I already mentioned like the writing and the dialogue, and those things combined just made for a film that's not really a good watch in the end. Now, two things I will say. There are two positives that I will give this film. There's two positives. One is the music. I thought the music was dope. There were a couple times where they had some odd choices, I think, but overall, I think the film did have some great music choices. Number two, the action sequences. Man, the action in this is insane, y'all. Um, the violence, it is super violent, like even more violent than I was expecting. Like the special effects are actually really good, even when he's getting messed up and he's got holes and cuts in his body and they're healing. It looks really good. The film is at times really bloody. The only bad part is it takes a while to get to that point where he is in wreck havoc mode. You really only get that towards the end, and I was hoping to get that a lot more throughout the film. But when the action is happening, it's honestly dope. And man, it is some brutal stuff. There was a lot of moments where I was just like, oh, I was saying it out loud because it was just so insane with the violence. But the problem with that is if you've seen the trailer, then you've basically seen all the action sequences. There might be a little bit longer, but all the moments in the trailer are the only action sequences within the film. And I was super disappointed by that because if you watch the trailer, you're thinking you're getting like a gothic John Wick, right? Well, I'm thinking that we're going to spend like 20 minutes setting this all up. And then for the rest of the film, it's just Eric Draven going ham, like take people down, knocking them off the list, working his way to the big bad, right? But it's not really like that. And I honestly feel that if the film was like that, it'd be a lot better because they did so poor at trying to tell this deep emotional story. And if you fail on that part, at least you could fall back on having some really good action. But then when you don't really have a whole lot of action, now you don't got nothing to fall back on. And now the film just feels super flat. And I was going to say it feels mid, but I honestly feel like it feels less than mid. Like this is one of those films where I really don't have no desire to rewatch it. The only thing that I probably would do is go on YouTube and rewatch like the like two big action sequences, and that's really about it. I don't think I'd rewatch this film. But I'm overall disappointed. I feel like the trailer definitely teased and tried to present itself as this like gothic fantasy John Wick, and we didn't really get that, and we also didn't really get as much like fantasy elements as I thought we would get to as the trailer presented. I was shocked by that as well. Like the trailer makes you think we're gonna get real fantastical with it, but we really don't. They also, and I mentioned Danny earlier, Danny Huston, and they wasted him. He should have had way more to do, way more on-screen time. Dude's a talented actor. They should have gave him a lot more to work with to really like bring his presence as a villain. We don't really get to see him be like super crazy. He's got like one or two moments, but I feel like they definitely should have done a lot more to like build up towards this big bad. But yeah, y'all, they should have just left it alone, man. I'm super disappointed. I gave this film a chance, right? I saw the trailer. I actually liked the trailer, and I wanted to give the opportunity to be something cool, but it's not cool. It comes off kind of like cringy at times, and just sometimes it's straight up boring, uninteresting. I was getting to that point. I was like wanting to check my watch. Like I was getting that kind of feeling, because when you're not seeing the action, you're just not really interested in the other elements. At least I wasn't. Um, I didn't really care like that because it just wasn't written well ultimately, right? That's what it boils down to. Uh, but I'm not gonna keep rambling, y'all. That's just how I feel. This is not a good film. If I haven't really fully thought about a rating until right now that I'm recording. But if I had to give it a rating, this would be probably I would probably give it either 1.5 out of 5 or 2 out of 5. It's gonna be somewhere in there. I'd have to kind of digest, but it's gonna be in that range because the action sequences were really fire. Like I'm trying to tell y'all, if someone's listening who makes films, do like a horror fantasy John Wick type film and have a good story, but then add in some more action too. Like, we need to explore that realm. Like, it's got potential, and I really do feel like this film had so much potential to be something way greater. They could have told a way more uh, emotional, weighted story where someone's really going through it and experiencing that heavy grief and losing themselves and the bloodlust of vengeance. Like, and they could have had some amazing performances with things like that and with the writing and things, but they fumbled on all those elements, and just across the board, it wasn't good. I did want to mention one more thing because I do like I just want to add in one more positive. There were moments. There were some good visual moments, like some of the shots, especially when he's in like the other world and stuff like that, and being sent back. There were some cool little visual, uh, the composition of some of those shots were actually really dope. But yeah, I mean, this ain't got nothing in the OG version. I, I might have to do a spoiler conversation with y'all just to dive into some of the more spoilery bits. But this film ain't it. This is a definitely wait for streaming, y'all. Like, save your money. I saw it in the IMAX, and even the IMAX can save this watching it on the big screen. Wait till streaming. You ain't missing nothing. It's super unfortunate. I wanted to give it a chance, but it ain't it, y'all. Now, look, I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you've made it this far in this spoiler-free review, let me know if you want me to do a spoiler discussion. I can definitely do that. Just drop that down in the comments. Give that comment a bunch of thumbs up and whatnot, and I'll make sure I do a spoiler discussion. But of course, like this video, y'all. That does help with the algorithm. Having that engagement in the comments, share it as well. Now, if you've seen the film, if you've seen this new The Crow, drop down in the comments. What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you in agreement with me, like that it just really fell flat on a lot of areas? But hey, the action sequences, they were fire. Like, hey, you gotta admit that at least they were fire, and some of the music was actually fire too. But let me know this. How you feeling? Because I'm curious to see. I did kind of check some of the Rotten Tomatoes. It is look like it, critic wise, is looking pretty rough. I think it was in the lower 30%. 30 percentile. So we'll see how that develops over the course of the weekend. I'm also curious about the box office. My theater, it was a real late showing, but it had about like 5 or 6 people. But we'll see, y'all. But drop all your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to this review. Make sure you go check out the other content that we have on our channel, our other trailer reactions and reviews. And of course, we got more things coming, y'all. We got more reviews coming. We always do our horror news shows live on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Come check those out too. So make sure you're subscribed, y'all, so you can stay tuned in with us and tuned into all things horror. My name is AJ. This has been In Love with Horror. We'll see you in the next one. I'm out. Peace.